All right. Hello, Fortinos brothers and sisters. Welcome back to Ministry Revealed. It is March 11th, 2025, and that just reminded me. I saw it on the news today as well. Can you believe it? It's been 5 years to the day since COVID explanation or since the COVID pandemic was declared. That is crazy. I was talking about it with my son earlier when we saw it on the news, and it's wild sometimes when we look at how quickly things passed and they feel like it's been gone forever. But when you're in it, it's taking forever. It was terrible. And just boom, like that. It is so wild. Well, that's where we are today, March 11th, 2025. And guys, you know that we are watching and praying. We will continue to be diligent, seeking and searching the Lord. And that's what we're going to continue with here today. Today is going to it's not going to be a continuation really of the last one, but I think what we did in this last one right here, I'm going to do some more in the future. Grab a chapter here, grab a chapter there, just one chapter, and focus to all the things that comes from it. I think it's exciting. I think it's a great way to see all the connections, and it'll be a good way to go forward, at least in part of the teachings going forward. And again, I say going forward, God willing, depending on where he wants to go or what time it is, right? And today we're gonna focus in on some additional revelations about this season and time that we're looking at. We've talked about lately, from Hope is Alive. Why? How could we possibly still be looking at what we're looking at now? And we realized it, of course, in the constellations. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And the reason I say it connects to the last one is because a brother had shared with me in an email based on the last teaching where the focus was Acts 15, and there was the context of Simeon that brought us back to the period of 40 days, and how Acts 15 was once it was over and the Lord was gone and the work was beginning. That was the typology and the prophetic symbology of the end of days that we were breaking down in it. Well, he realized, wait a second, we know Luke in order in Luke chapter 2 is a typology in the prophetic of the coming 40 days of the Son of Man after the pre-trib, the 1 week wedding, and the Lord returns as the Son of Man to warn. And it just so happened that Simeon was in there. And he reminded me and said, hey, wait a second, Simeon is also with the tribes of the south connected to Simeon. So there's Reuben, Simeon, and Gad. And so I went to go dig a little bit further, and that's what I'm going to share with you guys today. I'm going to share that and something else that was shared in the forum with a couple brothers that brought us to more information about Purim in relation to what they observe and what they do at Purim. In the last one, we talked about their drinking, right? They get blind drunk, and they use it as an allegory or whatever as Esther did, right? This drinking and forgetting and all that other stuff. Well, we're going to take it a step further with something else that was shared, and we're going to be able to show this confusion that even we had here, but that many others have as well, in relation to something that they also do, but we've always associated it with something that's connected to what Gentiles do instead of what Jews do. And where it was found and where it's talked about is prophetically very, very important for us as well, because we have recently, in the past year, revealed that book in order in the prophecies as well. So hold on tight. It's going to be fun. You're going to see we still have hope left. There's give or take about 10 days. Okay? We've got about a 10-day window. I'll explain. I'll touch on a little bit why, but you'll see it for yourselves as well, and you'll understand why. It's kind of, edge of our seat watching and praying right now, right? And continuing to diligently seek until. Anybody that's new for, this part that I always go into, anybody that's new to the ministry or newer, you're going to hear things that are going to sound crazy to you at first. But if you've ever read the Gospels and tried to understand why are there differences, like if you go to the Synoptic Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, And you've noticed that it's the same story, but some of them are very different from each other, almost like it's a different period. Well, it's because it is. And what you can do is you can come to this playlist right here, or you can click right here on ministryrevealed.com, and from ministryrevealed.com, go to the menu, click on the intro or intro series, and watch the first 4 teachings there. On the playlist, you can do it right here, the Revealed End Time Study Note series. Watch the first 4 of the 15 teachings here, and you will begin to get a grasp and an understanding of the revelation that's been happening here for 7.5 years. Once you click on this, these are the first, oops, I didn't bring it up. These are the first 4 videos.
Tina, the Tina Turner musical. See her triumphant story.
To the right here. These are the first 4 teachings that I recommend everybody who's new to watch. This first one here, the intro, is a 22-minute intro, just like it says, to give you a little heads up as to what the next 3 are going to be talking about. The second one is a 30-minute Bible study that will begin to open up your understanding to the revelation that the differences in the Gospels, like the Synoptic Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the reason the stories are different is because they are all giving us prophetic understanding to the end of days. And what it reveals is Matthew, Mark, Luke. In the end, the first will be last, the last will be first. It will be Luke, Mark, Matthew. You will see that there's pre, mid, and post. We've got teachings on that as well. It proves it out everywhere. And you're going to see that it's the differences within the Gospels, and we've shown dozens and dozens and dozens of them. We can even show in Scripture that the way the chapters are laid out in the same stories in Luke, Mark, and Matthew is an understanding of how things play out even in the prophetic around those times. It's absolutely incredible. But this is just a 30-minute intro to show you the understanding. Like in Luke, when he was going to the cross, he was arrayed in a gorgeous robe, which means white, radiant, beautiful. In Mark, he was arrayed in purple. In Matthew, he was arrayed in scarlet. Why 3 different descriptions of color? Well, just like the bride, pre-trib, beautiful, white, gorgeous robe. Mark, purple, Matthew, scarlet. Well, Mark and Matthew represent the 2 groups during tribulation, and you see the woman riding the beast arrayed in purple and scarlet. Luke's group, the pre-trib, is connected to the bride of Christ, the pre-trib. That's why it's the white, gorgeous robe. And what you find out is there is a pre-trib group who are in Christ, spirit-filled, repentant, baptized, diligently seeking the Lord. That's his pre-trib going. Then you're going to have 7 years of seals. And in the 7 years of seals tribulation, in the 7th year is going to be the mid-trib great multitude rapture, which is the world and the house of Israel. The Gentiles who are grafted in with the house of Israel, the great multitude rapture is taken out of the Gentiles, and the true house of Israel will make their way back to Jerusalem. It's all in there. It's wild. We call that the house of Israel, the Gentiles grafted, and we call that the world. The sleeping church, those that believe in Christ, but they weren't ready. They weren't diligent, they weren't seeking, they weren't repentant, they just believed. That's the sleeping church that will go through seals. But they'll be part of the greatest revival in the midst of the chaos that's coming. And then Matthew's is the 7 years of trumpets. And the 7 years of trumpets, when it's over, is at the end, in the 14th year, the Lord will return, feet down on the Mount of Olives, pre, mid, post, revealed in Luke, Mark, Matthew, over 14 years in a period called above in Luke's portion. It's wild. Now you're saying, wait a second, that it reveals that it's not 7 years as well. Well, that's why you can go to this third video, which is another 30-minute intro to begin to show you the revelation of the 14 years. There's a bigger picture, which is 21 years to the 22nd year. And then once those 7, what we call easy years compared to tribulation, are over, there's 7 years of seals, 7 years of trumpets, and that's what we call the 14 years. We show it. It's in Scripture. This will begin to give you the intro understanding of it. And then the 15th year would be the Jubilee, which is the same as saying the 22nd year. in the bigger picture of 21 and then the 22nd year. And it's also the same as saying the end of the 49 years and then the Jubilee, which is the 50th year. Okay? It's all going to start to be open to you in these two right here. And then what you're going to say, oh my goodness, how was this not understood? How is this possible? Well, the answer is found right here. One is because it wasn't yet timing, and two, because we've all been taught from the Gospel of Matthew. And because our foundation comes from the Gospel of Matthew, everything else we go to read in the prophetic, people believe that it's only 7 years long, because they think Matthew 24, Matthew 24, Matthew 24, because Mark and Luke had never been understood in relation to the differences to who they are speaking to. That's why there are people divided on whether pre, mid, post are true. All three are true. It's Luke, Mark, Matthew. But it's a revelation of 14 years. 7 years of seals, 7 years of trumpets. And this will all start to open your mind. Pray over it. Ask the Spirit to lead you in it. And I promise you, you'll be blown away. You will understand prophecy as you've never, ever understood it before. Do we have all of the answers? Nope. Do we have hundreds more than have ever been revealed before? Absolutely, 100%. And we could prove it to you throughout over 600 teachings. 7.5 years, we've continued to be able to reveal these things. All right? And every time there's something new, it fits exactly. It ties into the constellations. It ties into the timing of the tribes in the wilderness. It ties into the timing of the 7 churches of the end of days that we revealed. It ties into the Gospels and how they play out. It ties into John's Gospel and how his plays out in each chapter for a year in the end of days. All the way back to the creation and the different creations that took place is the revelation of the Gospels to the revelation of the end of days. That's how powerful it is. All right? So I don't take it lightly. It's powerful, it's exciting, and it has opened people's understandings all over the world. So with that, like, share it with others. Go make comments on other people's YouTube channels, because that's how some of you have gotten here, right? That'll maybe reach more people. And let's keep making a push as we prayerfully are coming to an end. This, of course, here we are right now, March 11th, 2025, talking to you at about this time right here in Canada, in Calgary, Alberta. And this is about the time frame I believe we have left for the pre-trib to happen. Okay? Well, why is that? We know that the pre-trib, unequivocally, the pre-trib bride of Christ is connected to the wheat harvest, the first fruits of the wheat harvest, okay, of the Feast of Weeks, at the true Feast of Weeks. But John chapter 11 said that it was going to be 4 months early. John chapter 4 told us that it was going to be 4 months early. We went to 4 months early looking at Shabbat because we thought this was Aquarius, and then we went to the constellations as it was passing, started scratching our heads because why? Well, because the revelation of 70 years, this is the end of it. There's no understanding that we have at this point that shows us how we can go 1 more year or 3 or 5 or 10 or 50. There is no other count from Israel or Jerusalem, which is now Jerusalem, that takes us past this year we're in, that would end at Nisan and begin the 14 years at the end of 70. There's no more. So this is why we're being extra diligent at this time, as well as the revelation of the calendars, all of these things. So we're going to stay diligent until this final day. Now, why do I say this final day? And of course, when I say diligent until here, if it still doesn't come, of course we're going to remain diligent. The Lord continues to reveal and reveal if a time comes and goes. He continues to bring clarity. But here's the thing. We know it's connected to Aquarius. We know it's Aquarius, brothers and sisters. And the important piece about Aquarius, which is just the beginning of what we're talking about here today, is this is the last day of Aquarius. This is New Month Day on March 30th, and that's when the moon is at the sun in Aquarius. In Pisces. So this is the end of the line. And why do I say only to about March 21st? Because the Son of Man is going to be connected to the time of Aquarius when he comes. And that means what? That means there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days of the Gentile wedding, just like Leah's wedding, that takes place first. And then the 8th day is the Lord coming as the Son of Man, who is coming to warn as he said he would as Jonah. And in all these places that we've talked about, we're going to touch on again later, which means what? Which means the Lord can come no later as the Son of Man, as the representation of the south, as the 4 beasts around the throne. We know 3 of them are a picture of the 3 comings of Christ after the pre-trib for his 40 days, at the end of seals, at the end of the 6th year, at that 7th year of seals, when he comes for the great multitude on with paradise on Mount Zion, and when he returns, feet down on the Mount of Olives, at the end of the 13th year to start the 14th year of trumpets. Okay? Which means this is the last day of Aquarius. If this is the last day of Aquarius and we're still here, if it's tonight, then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and this would be the 8th day. You see? Is there something in here that's a possibility? Sure. But that's why everything from here to here is. Because what's happening is, as I said, we know there's a 7-day wedding. And he returns on the 8th day. When he returns on the 8th day, he's returning as the Son of Man to begin his 40 days. Which is going to also, as you're going to see later, tie into Simeon and tie into Gad. Okay? But it has to begin in Aquarius. Well, how do we know this? This incredible eye-opening revelation that finally revealed it to us a few months ago. There are 3 blessings given by Balaam, right? That bad prophet, by the beast typology, the false king. Okay? When Balaam spoke 3 blessings over the people of Israel, when Balak wanted him to curse them, God gave the words to Balaam to speak. And he blessed them 3 times. One as the man with the pitcher of water, the other one as the ox, and the other one as the lion. These are unequivocally 100% the 3 comings of Christ after the pre-trib on the 8th day to be here as 40 days as the Son of Man, when he's going to be rejected, when most of the world are going to think he's the Antichrist. And then when he returns at the end of at the 7th year of seals, when he's coming as Messiah ben Ephraim, the ox, the representation of the high priest and king, and then when he returns as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, feet down on the Mount of Olives. The first one is right here. He is the man with the pitcher of water. That man with the pitcher of water is Reuben. And Reuben, as you all know, is Aquarius. Reuben is the tribe to the south, and in order it would be Reuben, then Simeon, and then Gad. That's how it plays out in order. Reuben, Simeon, Gad. Reuben here, then Simeon, and then Gad. I'll show you a picture, another picture example later. And these four beasts around the throne, we know that 1, 2, 3 are the representation of the comings of Christ. And this is, of course, when Satan falls, when he's kicked out, when his wings are clipped and he's cast down to the earth. What this reveals is awesome, because we've done a teaching on this, haven't we? We've done an incredible teaching on it, on all of them around the throne, And I'm not going to go into deep details, but we're going to touch on it in a bit. But this right here is the key, because this isn't about all of seals or all of trumpets. No, this is about the period of the Son of Man coming, which means it starts in Reuben. It's got to be in Simeon and also connected to Gad. Oh, yeah. You're going to see that when we get into it. Okay? So we know that Reuben is Aquarius. We went to Aquarius, and what did we see when we went to the constellations? This goes counterclockwise. We know that Pisces is Nisan, right? Here's Nisan. There's the start of Nisan. And if Pisces is Nisan, which it is, and Aquarius is the constellation that comes before, then that means this cannot be Aquarius. Adar has to be Aquarius. And that's why in this 70th year, we're still hopeful. We can have a lot of strength and understanding. We are still in this, and at the very least, we're in it till about right here, because we've still got our 7 days before the Lord coming in the 8th day, which has to be in Aquarius. You get it? It must be in Aquarius when he returns on the 8th day. The 8th day, Aquarius, is the beginning of the Son of Man, and Reuben is the head tribe of the south. It is a representation of him coming for 40 days as the Son of Man, as he said he would. It's important for us to understand this, guys, and to remember this. So, again, it brings us back. Why are we looking here when it's supposed to be connected to wheat? Because Jesus gave us the prophetic message in John chapter 4, telling us that it was going to be 4 months early. So you're in March instead of April, May, June. 4 months. Okay? That's the end of it. There is, you understand how crazy it is? Because there is no option after this. Not for this year. We can maybe consider that there's something going to Savan at the true time of the first fruits of the wheat harvest, or whether it needs to be counted by the additional 2 months and going over here. But how could we do that? We now have the revelation since the fall of the two calendars, one being from Nisan and the other one being from Tishri, one being the yearly calendar and the other one being the sowing and reaping calendar. So how could we go past here and assume it later on in the year somewhere? It doesn't work. It doesn't line up with revelation that's been understood, which would mean there would only be another option to some mystery of 70 years happening later. I don't see it right now, and I know I've shown you guys. You guys understand it as well. But we don't have to worry about that yet. We don't have to concern ourselves with it, because we've got about 10 days to go. All right? So, what else do we know about Aquarius? Well, this is quite interesting in relation to Aquarius. We know this from Luke's discourse, which is clearly, this is the pre-trib verse right here, guys, or one of them right here. Luke 21:36, Luke's discourse, right? This is what happens before these things in Luke take place. This is the pre-trib right here. Watch ye therefore and pray always, Luke 21:36, that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. And then it says, and in the daytime he was teaching in the temple, and the night he went out and abode in the mount that is called the Mount of Olives, and all the people came early in the morning to him, to the temple for to hear him. Well, we know this same wording, of course, right? We know that this same wording is in John chapter 8, and in our chapters to years, it's the connection to right at the beginning of John chapter 8, verse 1 and 2. And then what do you see? The typology of the Gentile bride, the woman caught in adultery, right? And her standing in the midst of them. And then he says, I am the light in the darkness, okay? That maybe should have been the title of the last teaching. It was everywhere, right? Everything in relation to this is the coming of the Son of Man to begin his 40 days. So if this is here, when we see this wording that starts it, and this wording that starts it is the wording that's connected to the end of Luke's discourse at the time of the pre-trib, well, we're also looking for the understanding of it to be in Aquarius. And guess what? If we follow the end of Luke 21 and just go into Luke 22, as others have said to us, look at what Luke 22 goes on to talk about, right? The Feast of Unleavened Bread drew nigh, okay? Drew nigh. It was coming near. It wasn't immediate. Well, guess what? Here's your end of Aquarius. And then, look, is it drawing nigh? Of course it is. It'll only be, what, a couple weeks or so away, 2.5 weeks away. So in the prophetic, we can also see that, yes, it's drawing nigh. But why does this make a difference? Well, we all know this one now too very well, don't we? In Luke 22, verse 10, and he said unto them, behold, when you are entered into the city, there shall a man meet you bearing a pitcher of water. That is, as you know, brothers and sisters, Aquarius. Who is the man with the pitcher of water? It's Reuben, right? The connection is to Reuben, but they would say it was the Lord, right? So there's a man with the pitcher of water. Well, is this the pre-trib? No, it has to be after the pre-trib. This is when he's coming for 40 days. There's a group of the pre-trib who are going to meet the man with the pitcher of water, who's going to have that meal with them, remember? That banquet meal that happens after the wedding feast. And he's going to have it with his disciples in that upper room where he's going to gather them. Well, that just so happens that all of this follows the escape, the wording that happens at the time of the escape, the wedding picture being revealed in John, and then the Lord coming to begin his 40 days as the light coming in the darkness, which is connected to the man with the pitcher of water, which is exactly what it said to the first blessing, which is him coming, he shall pour the water of his bucket, and his seeds shall be in many waters, again, these workers, and his king shall be higher than the Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted. That's him coming to start his 40 days. It's awesome stuff. Well, what about Reuben? What does it say about Reuben? Okay? In Genesis chapter 49, it's the, I believe this is Abraham giving the blessings, right? Oh, Jacob, sorry, gave the blessings over each of his sons. And what is it pertaining to? You see, it says, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. This is the literal, the definition is in the end of days. Okay, the end times. You could say what befell them when they were there in that time at their end, sure. But there's prophecy in all of it. And when you see last days, last time, you can guarantee it's all talking about prophecy as well. Well, let's go look in Genesis chapter 49 in Esord, so we can look at these word definitions more closely. Look at Reuben. Reuben, okay, see a son, like the Son of Man that's coming. Reuben, thou art my, what is it? Firstborn. The firstborn. The feast of first fruits of the Feast of Weeks is the first fruits of the wheat harvest, which is connected to the firstborn. What have we talked about all these years in relation to Leah? The older before the younger. Leah is the firstborn and the older before the younger. What do we know about the Feast of Weeks of the first fruits of the wheat harvest? Well, when we go to Leviticus 23, it's the Hebrew word 1061. This is the Hebrew word 1060. What do you think the chances that both of them are connected to the root word 1069, which is what? Early fruit, firstborn child, new fruit, right? What if we go to Leviticus 23 and let's see this comparison and see where the first fruits of wheat, because obviously the 1060 is connected to humans, but let's go to the first fruits of the wheat harvest and see what it says about that. Where am I? Okay, right here. Here's the first fruits of the wheat harvest. With leaven, they are the first fruits unto the Lord, and it's the Hebrew word 1061. The Hebrew word 1061 is because it's the first fruits of the first right crop, which is the same connection. One is people, one is related to the wheat harvest, one is Leah, one is Reuben, but they both represent the same thing. This first fruits, this first portion, and that remnant group that will remain to serve the Lord from the pre-trib that is going to be chosen to remain. They're included in this. And here's the first fruits of the crops that we always go to. This is the stuff that we should be looking at in late spring to early summer when the first fruits of the wheat is ready. But when we go to Reuben, Reuben is Aquarius. Do you think there's a reason why it's 4 months early? What do you mean 4 months early? Well, this is summertime, right? At late spring, early summer at Taurus and Sivan. So you've got Taurus, Aries, Pisces, Aquarius. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's your 4 months. Jesus said we would be as the wheat. The whole story we've tracked for years has been the revelations of the first fruit of the wheat harvest connected to Leah. And then in these last several months, since the fall, we've got the revelation of the 4 months back because it was the revelation of Aquarius. Now we can understand that Leah's connection and wheat and Reuben's connection to Aquarius and the man with the pitcher of water are both pictures of first fruits being observed at the time of Aquarius. And look at the definition. Look at the rest of it. Let's go back to Genesis 49. Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and look at this, the beginning of my strength. Well, what do we know about this group? The beginning of my strength. Who is this beginning? This is the Hebrew word 7225. This is from the feast of first fruits. This is literally Jesus Christ. Okay? He is the what? The first of the firstborns. Right? Jesus is of many brethren. Remember we shared in the last one? And Reuben is connected to the firstborns, the pre-trib and the remnant group who will stay. And what is the connection to Reuben? Being the firstborn, my might, and what? The beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. Remember I told you what was coming for the remnant group? That we can't fully understand that group that will be the workers that will serve the Lord, that are chosen from among the pre-trib group before they're taken. All right? My might, my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. These are descriptions, brothers and sisters. But what is this word beginning? What if we go to Genesis chapter 1? Because remember, Genesis is the story of the whole end of days as well in the big picture. And what do we get? The beginning. Who's the beginning? Christ. It's the same word, 7225. And what does the gap theory, right, that people claim is a reason for millions of years or billions of years, we know it represents the first 7 days in another creation, right, that mystery creation. We know that if we were there in the dimension of time, it would have been as 7,000, because 1,000 to us is like a day to the Lord. A day to the Lord is 1,000 to us. And what does this represent in the end of days? The 7-day wedding, right? It's also a picture of the 7-day wedding. Now, how can we say that? We know, first of all, the beginning. We know it's the Spirit of God, the sons of God, right? Those who have the Spirit of God are the sons of God. We know the remnant of them that will remain to serve him. And when does the Lord come? When he comes to begin his 40 days, he's coming as the light shining in the darkness. Which means in the creation stories, this gap theory is the picture of the 7 days. And this, of course, would be the beginning of his 40 days. And it would appear that his 40 days in relation to the story here in Genesis, yes, there's the 50 days. It's 7 days. The 8th day he comes. There's 40 days. And then there's the anointing of the Holy Ghost. Okay, we understand that. But it would appear from this that the 14 years would begin at the coming of the Son of Man for 40 days. This is the same picture we get in Revelation with the first seal. The first seal is the Son of Man returning from the wedding as the white horse rider. And it's also the beginning of seals. So it's the same picture, just like you see here. It's the first day, or quote-unquote 1,000 years that play out. Or the 1 year in the time of the end would begin at him coming as the light shining in the darkness, which means it's connected to when he comes as the Son of Man, connected to the south, starting in Reuben, which is Aquarius. Now, we just saw the definitions, right? Firstborn, beginning. We see that beginning is connected to Christ. It's the first group at the beginning. It's connected to Leah. It's connected to a wheat, but also to firstborn being people. It's Aquarius. There's no way around it. What about now where this could end up being? Now, we've only got about 10 days. Is it really that big of a deal? No, but we want to make sure we're understanding this, right? And we've talked about this in Psalms 19. Again, why do we talk about it in Psalms 19? Well, the same reason we went to John chapter 8. You saw the picture of the pre-trib bride, and then you saw him coming as the light shining in the darkness. And what do you have? Chapters to years. Excuse me, the start of the 14 years. And when we went to Genesis, we can do the same thing by going from Genesis 7 going into Genesis 8. Genesis 8 talks about the 40 days and the 40 days coming to an end. So that's an interesting one as well. But in Psalms, look at it right here. There's the events that we say are the events of the chaos at the pre-trib and the events that will happen during the week. And then what do we have? Psalms 19 in chapters to years. Psalms 19 equals the coming of the Son of Man at his 40 days. And according to the chapters to years, it would mean the 40 days begin at his coming. The 40 days begin at the start of the 14 years. Hence, it's connected to year 1 of the 14 years. Well, remember what it says about it, right? We talked about this just recently. Their line is gone throughout the heavens. And why was that seemingly something very important? Well, because right here, there was all of the heavens, this alignment parade of the planets that won't happen again until September 8th, 2040. And we explained why that was a big deal. But why was this a big deal? Maybe as the marker for us. Maybe as their line has gone out, now we should have been grasping some understanding by paying attention to what it was. And many people have, but it's hard to really know. We're not astronomers, right? We're not like the wise men that were out there that understood the sun, moon, and stars. But guess what? He's given us scripture. He's given us his word. And we have his was, is, and is to come. So here we are looking at this as like the start, like this is that month that we're praying for to be paying attention to. Things begin from here. And what are we looking at? Of course, either it's going to be connected to here or it's going to be connected to here, right? Now, why do I say that? Psalms 19, as we saw, of course, says their circuit, right? So their line has gone out. That happened from the end of last month to start this month. And it says, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber and rejoicing as a strong man, ready to run a race. His going forth is from one end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. Now, why am I showing this? Why am I going into this again? Because it brings us to this important piece of this definition of circuit. Okay? This Tekufa has two definitions to it. And the two definitions is the course of the sun, so a revolution for the course of the sun, which is a time lapse, right? Or sorry, the circuit of the sun, so the course of the sun, and the other one is a revolution of time, okay, which means a year. So where is the year's end? Well, according to the calendars, according to the sun, right? What did it say? His son, right? Bridegroom coming out of his chamber, which is a circuit from one end unto the other. Yeah, there we go. A tabernacle for the sun, okay? And so what do we see? We see the circuit of the sun right here, okay? There's your springtime starting up right here. So we have this period of a year's end. That means it better get to it right away, right? What's another option? Well, maybe there's something to Purim. Maybe it's a Purim and then to here, and then the Lord comes here. You see, but time is running out. We're going to touch on this towards the end about Purim as well. Some more revelation, more understanding that came from it. And all of these things are what? In true Aquarius. So what's the other option? Well, of course, like I said, we had the equinox. Here it is. This is Pacific time. So California, Vancouver, right, in Canada, is March 20th, 3 a.m. So it's early in the morning, which has it, in this area right here. Okay? This would be the timing to the year's end and the new year. That time seems to have most likely passed, unless something happens later tonight. Okay? I would say that seems to have likely passed. But there is another year's end. Okay? And that's this one right here. And we'll see the options, but it doesn't mean other things can't happen within here. Okay? We're gonna break some of these things down. And that's kind of what I was getting at with this other one right here, was to say, don't forget, this one right here is another year's end. Okay? This year's end, just like I said, one is a revolution of time, which relates to the compass of the sun, right? The going about of the sun. And the other one is of the count of a year. And we know from the calendars now that the calendar is Nisan 1 is the beginning of the year. And we're looking for something that is also this revolution of time. Which one are we looking for? Are they both included? Is this one have to go by so that this one can be the one that it happens at, but this one had to be connected? I don't know. But we understand it has this connection to a year's end, and now here we are with two of them at hand. You'll remember in the last teaching, this is what I was talking about earlier, that our brother had mentioned about in the last one about Simeon, okay, from this last one. And this mention with Simeon was very interesting because Simeon is here in chapter 2 of Luke, which is our Luke in order, okay? So if we go to the understanding, which is Reuben, then Simeon, then Gad, so it'd be Reuben, then Simeon, and then Gad, if they were lined up one after the other, is how they were laid out in the wilderness, then we should be looking at this, understanding that here we are coming to the end of Aquarius. The Lord has to come. I really want you guys to understand that, so that we can understand and not go too crazy within our minds as people try to figure out what might be excuse me, later in the year, or at this point or that point, and all throughout the year. Because the scriptures told us it's the man with the pitcher of water. So hopefully we can take a deep breath and just continue to diligently seek and search him. Okay? But what happened is when we went into Luke chapter 2, and we see this is a picture of the birth of the Son of Man, and it represents the typology of the coming of the Son of Man in Luke in order, and that means there would be a connection to this 40-day period of time in which Christ is here that should also be connected to, you guessed it, Simeon. Simeon. Simeon, which means hearing, right? Hearing, and what else was it? It means to hear. It goes further than that as well. Yeah, to hear intelligently, obedience, and so forth, okay? But this is what our brother had posted about it. Hey, wait a second. We know Luke in order. And if Luke in order is after the 7-day wedding connected to John, and that remnant group being ready on the 8th day, like John being in the wilderness, this group that's been in the wilderness and will be in the wilderness during the time of seals, and you've got the 40 days of the Son of Man that follows next, the typology of his birth, and we have Simeon as the second one in the order, and here he is in Luke chapter 2, holding the Son of Man. And when did he come to him? On the 8th day, right after his circumcision. Okay, so you had the circumcision after 8 days, and then he was presented to the temple. And when he was, now remember, that 8 days is not the 8 days of the pre-trib in Luke chapter 1. It's just the events of what took place in the is, okay? The is from creation to Christ. Or sorry, the was is from creation to Christ. The is from Christ until the moment of the pre-trib. And from the moment of the pre-trib till the end, it's the was. The is to come. So you have the was, the is, and the is to come. The events that are spoken about in here are also events that literally took place. So we're not looking for this breakdown to be so specific in the 40 days that there's going to be a circumcision of some baby during the 40 days on the 8th day of the 40. No, it's just the picture of the 40 days of the Son of Man. But here it is. The Lord was presented to Simeon in the temple on the 8th day of the 40. So if we go to Nisan, here's Nisan. There would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This would be like the circumcision date, right? And he's being presented now in this time frame, in the typology of the prophetic timing that we're looking at here, where he would be presented to Simeon. And it just so happens that Simeon is in the book in order, the book in order that was revealed to us from the last teaching that we've understood, that then talks about the Son of Man, who is the light to lighten the Gentiles, right? The light to shine the light on the Gentiles, the light shining in the darkness that we showed in so many connections. In the last one that we just saw in John chapter 8, that we just saw in Genesis 1, that we're seeing here, that we'll see in Isaiah 9. All the same timing in relation to the 40 days of the Son of Man. So this connection to seeing Simeon's name here is another hugely prophetic implication to the understanding of the end of days, proving out Reuben. We're going to see something here that's going to prove out that the Lord will have to be here during all three of their times. What? What do you mean during all three of their times? Well, let me show you what they were like in the wilderness. Hopefully this picture will pop up again. There we go. Okay. It's just laid out differently. This is to the south, okay? So you have Reuben, then Simeon, and then Gad. And what you're going to see is that when the Son of Man comes for 40 days, he's going to fulfill this period of time. Meaning, he's coming as the man with the pitcher of water, right? The disciple, the remnant group that will remain to serve, is going to gather themselves to him, where he's going to have that banquet meal with them after the wedding. He's going to be here during the period of Simeon, which is connected to Luke, which was given to us in the description from Acts 15 in the last teaching, when James says, look, Simeon told us that he was coming for the Gentiles first to call a people unto himself. And then he's also going to have to what? Fulfill Gad. How is he going to fulfill them all? In their definitions. We covered Reuben, right? We know Reuben now, the man with the pitcher of water. That's the banquet meal we're going to have. And then we've got Simeon, the one who's there. And then there's still Gad. Well, guess what? When the Lord comes at the end of seals, let's bring it up on this chart. So this was for you to see them, how they lined up in the wilderness. But now watch this. When the Lord comes at the end of seals, how long is it going to take him to fulfill all of this? Do you think it's going to be like the first the last year of seals and 3.5 years of trumpets? No. When he's coming with heavenly Mount Zion, he's coming as the unicorn, the ox, the bull. Right? He's coming as Messiah ben Ephraim. That was the second blessing. This is him, period, when he comes. And then what is he going to do? Well, then you have Manasseh, and then you have the wolf. Benjamin is represented as a wolf. It doesn't mean the Antichrist is going to be Benjamin, okay? But Benjamin means wolf. Well, what do we know about the wolf? In John, in order, in chapters to years, there's year 1, 2, 3. What happens in the third year, about 2.5 years into seals? The beast, the Antichrist, gets his power to continue for 42 months. That's when he's really going to be the beast. Okay? And what do we see? We have the warning of the one who is a thief who comes in by another way to the sheepfold, not by the door. And what's he called? He's called the wolf. He's the wolf. The wolf. The wolf comes but to steal and to kill, to scatter the sheep. Who is the wolf? It's the beast of the end of days. And when the Lord comes at the end of the sixth seal, what do we know is he's going to do when he comes as Messiah ben Ephraim, high priest and king? We know he's going to what? Kill the beast. So the beast was, and then is not because he's killed, and won't be brought back until Satan is cast down. So when the Lord returns on Mount Zion to gather the people in the mid-trib great multitude, he's coming as the ox, Messiah ben Ephraim. He's going to kill the wolf, right? The beast and the 10 kings with him. And what is he going to do? Well, we have the olive branch, arrows, and of course, Numbers 13. We've covered this in a previous teaching, right? You guys will remember this teaching here. This was an awesome, awesome teaching. This wasn't very long ago either. Right here. The tribes in the wilderness. When I went through them and broke them all down, explaining them, it's phenomenal. And to be able to do it and include it with the 7 churches of the end of days and how it plays out, it's over the top how crazy awesome it is. Okay? But what do we know the Lord, when he comes as Messiah ben Ephraim, right, the ox, and kills the beast and the 10 kings that are with him, represented as the wolf, then what is he going to do? He's going to gather the great multitude, which is the olive branch. Right? What olive branch? Well, it's the Gentiles who were grafted in to the house of Israel, which we showed in Genesis chapter 8, stayed yet 7 other days. That's the 7 years of seals. And then what do we see? The olive leaf plucked off. What is the olive leaf? It's also a branch. And what is it connected to? Manasseh, the olive branch. The arrows, like not only Ephraim, but Ephraim through his father, Joseph. And then what do we have? Another incredible connection, which is Numbers chapter 13. Because why? Because when Jesus comes, pre-trib, he was represented as Hosea, as the deliverer. But then just like Moses changes his name from Hosea he ends up changing it from Hosea to Joshua, which is Yeshua. And here he is coming when he gets that name change. And what do we know ends up happening to Joshua, Yeshua? He's the one that leads them over to the promised land when he comes. So is the Lord fulfilling all of this in like the last year and then another 3.5 years? No. He's going to fulfill this within just probably less than that 1 year of the last year of seals. This is that setup place just for this to happen. When we go over here, when it's the third blessing, and he's coming as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, what do we know? An ass under burden for Issachar. Why is that? Because we know it relates to Matthew, right? The again that's going to happen. That's why Matthew's has the colt and the ass. But in Mark and Luke, it's only the colt. Because we know the again is going to happen, which is him being brought in with the ass and with the colt. When he returns feet down at this time, he's connected to the Lion of the tribe of Judah when he's coming to tread the grapes. This is exactly when he comes. And then, what is he going to do? Zebulun is a ship. Well, we know it's going to be as it was in the days of Noah, and it starts with 40 days, just like Luke chapter 4. And it's going to be those in the ark, those protected, compared to the destruction that's coming to the rest. How long does all this play out for? I don't know, a few days? These aren't things that are stretched out over long periods of tribulation. These are all things that take place in relation to each of his comings. And the one in Reuben, or the one to the south represented by man starting with Reuben, doesn't only encompass Reuben, but it also encompasses Simeon and it encompasses Gad. It encompasses all three, just like it does the other ones at his other two comings afterwards. Just as like when Satan is cast down, those are the events related to those tribes in the wording that will begin to take place right away. So, why do I bring this up? Well, let's see what else we can find out about Simeon and Reuben. Gad. Watch this. The constellation of Pisces is related to Simeon. In Hebrew and Judaism symbolism, the Pisces constellation is associated with the tribe of Simeon. Some people will say, it's not Simeon and they maybe put it somewhere else, but what do we know? The vast majority put it under Reuben because these are the way the tribes are described in the wilderness. This isn't some mystery. But I've said it before. You know what's awesome about this chart? We never made it. It was designed by some Bible Tools website out there. When I saw it, I had the revelation of the tribes in the wilderness of the end of days just by reading through it, because we had the revelation of prophecy. It was awesome. Okay? So we understand this. So when I went to look it up, and I found out that in Hebrew and Judaism, that Pisces is represented by Simeon, well, do you think I was a little bit excited? Of course, because if this is Reuben and this is Simeon, then what do you think Aries is going to be? Well, let's have a look. Aries. Yeah, let's see what Aries would be. And of course, in some forms of Hebrew astronomy and biblical interpretation, the constellation Aries, often depicted as the ram or lamb of the world, has been associated with the biblical figure Gad. Some have said they believe maybe it's Simeon. It's Simeon or Gad. Well, guess what? If these are the three in order, counterclockwise, and it starts with Reuben, and Simeon comes before Gad, then it's not a mystery that Simeon is Pisces and that Gad is Aries. You see, it's not me making these things up and going through it. It's what Scripture shows and history depicts about these things. what the sun, moon, and stars tell us about it. And here they are in order. Reuben, which has to be the beginning of the 40 days of the Son of Man. Hello. It has to be. It's unequivocally connected to Reuben first. Remember the three comings of the Lord. It's right there in Numbers 24. It's so powerful. But if he's here for 40 days, and the period of time represented by him as the Son of Man is this 40-day period, is it only supposed to represent Reuben? Or should it also have a connection to Simeon? And should it also have a connection to Gad? I believe the answer is all three. This whole period from Reuben, Simeon, and Gad represent the south. And it's headed by Reuben, the man with the pitcher of water. So lo and behold, how exciting it was to find out that 4 months early is where the wheat would be to where the whiteness and the red is, had to be connected to the man with the pitcher of water. And then to find out that, hey, all of this represents the timing of the Son of Man for 40 days. And to realize that Simeon is right there in our prophetic picture of Luke in order, connected to the Son of Man coming for 40 days in Luke chapter 2. Of course, that's exciting. And then to go look up at what the constellations represent in relation to the 12 tribes, and they were in order. Which means the Son of Man has to start his 40 days here, go all through Pisces here, and end in Aries. Do you get that? Because the 40 days starts here, goes through here, and ends in Aries. So he would have a portion of Reuben, Simeon, and Gad. Remember that? So here it was. Acts 15. Simeon had told us how God would come and visit the Gentiles to take out a people for them first. We went to Luke chapter 2. God took out a people for his name in Luke chapter 1. Simeon had told them about it, and then Simeon is here receiving the prophetic typology of the Son of Man during the 40 days when he's coming to shine his light in the darkness for the Gentiles. And then, of course, there's Gad. And so let's go look at Gad in Genesis 49. In Genesis 49, we see the story of Gad. There it is. Genesis 49:19. We come to the word Gad, and it also means also a prophet, right? Well, isn't that interesting? Because when the Son of Man is here for 40 days, he's going to be what? He's going to be the man with the pitcher of water, Reuben. He's going to be a priest in the temple, right? Like a high priest, like Simeon. And he's going to be the prophet as Jonah was. All of these things are a representation of him here for the 40 days. Go to the man with the pitcher of water. He is the high priest, and he's the prophet as Jonah was. Funny how that happens, right? And as the prophet as Jonah was, brothers and sisters, what is he going to do? What is he going to do during his 40 days as Jonah was the prophet? He's going to warn, remember? Isn't he going to warn about an attack, an invasion, and an attack coming? Isn't that exactly what he does as the Son of Man for 40 days? He's coming to warn as Jonah was. You remember what happened in John chapter 7? In John chapter 7, when they said, oh, what good comes from Galilee? John 7:52. And they said, and they answered and said unto him, Art thou also of Galilee? Search and look, for out of Galilee ariseth no prophet. But what do we know about a prophet from Galilee? Jonah. Jonah was the prophet from Galilee. And here we are looking at Messiah coming as this representation of all three of these, and the last one being the one who's a prophet. And when he's warning as Jonah, the prophet from Galilee, he's warning this time of what? An impending attack. An invasion that's coming to who? To Jerusalem. Right? He's warning of what's coming in the attack from Jerusalem. Again, it's just right here. Attack, invade, overcome. This is precisely what we've been talking about, that Jesus is going to be doing when he comes for 40 days. But before he does, we know he's going to be the man with the pitcher of water who's going to gather that remnant server disciple group to have a banquet meal with them before he's then represented as the high priest and then the prophet warning. These are all the things that he's doing during his 40 days. And when we come to Isaiah chapter 9, we see that same thing that we've talked about many times. The light affliction that comes in the north on Haifa and Tel Aviv in the prophetic. And that's going to take place during the wedding week in heaven after the pre-trib. And then the Lord comes on the 8th day. And what is he coming as? There it is again. The light shining in the darkness. It's connected to, for unto us a child is born in Luke chapter 2. And then what happens? When he's here as the Son of Man for 40 days, we know he's warning about what? This right here. Syria. Syria and those with Syria coming to devour with an open mouth. And for all this, the Lord's anger is not turned away, right? For all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. For the people turneth not unto him that smiteth them, neither do they seek the Lord of hosts. Therefore the Lord will cut off from Israel head and tail, branch and rush in one day. The first attack that happens in the first week while the wedding's happening, after millions have vanished, tens of millions of people have vanished, there's an attack from Iran on Haifa and Tel Aviv. Then the Son of Man is here for 40 days. He represents all three, of which the third one is the prophet, like Jonah was, who is the light in the darkness, who is warning, as he said he would as Jonah, about the impending attack coming, that when they see themselves compassed about, they're to flee to the wilderness. Remember this? This is all part of the differences in the Gospels, right? In Luke chapter 11, compared to Mark, compared to Matthew, excuse me, this is a big one in the differences that many people over the centuries have used to compare and say, see, the scriptures are just simply written by men. Because look at the contradiction of Jonah to what Jesus says. In Luke chapter 11, he says that he would be as Jonah was, a warning for 40 days. The church tries to tell us that Jesus already fulfilled this. We know it's prophecy for the end. In Mark's gospel, he says there would be no sign, and he got in the ship and he left. And then you go to Matthew, and he says he would be as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, which means the resurrection will be on the 4th day, not the 3rd, which is prophecy as well. You see, these all relate to the pre, mid, post, or the 3 of his comings, not directly pre, mid, and post, but to his 3 comings. That is exactly what we're reading about in Numbers 28, the Reuben, right? Reuben, Ephraim, and Judah. This is the first one. And what does it say? Well, he would be as Jonah, the prophet. Gad, hello. Excuse me. For as Jonah was a sign unto the Ninevites. Okay, Jonah was the sign. So who is the sign? Jesus is the sign. Okay, unto Judah this time. So shall also the Son of Man be to this generation, which means the end of days, the last generation. And then he talks about the Queen of the South. Oh, interesting, right? He's talking about the Queen of the South. Our sister Petra shares a lot on this in relation to the Queen of the South. And when you go to the Queen of the South, oh, wait a second. Look at where Reuben is. The Reuben, Simeon, Gad is connected to what? The South. Where does the remnant group of workers who will remain to serve the Lord as his disciples, as the Priscillas and Aquilas, the Moses and Elijahs, right? Where the Smyrnas, where are they all coming from? They're all coming from here. Through this Kohath connection right here, this priestly line of workers chosen. Now, are they all Jews? No, it's a Gentile worker. It's right there. We talked about it in the last one. We've talked about it in others. It is a Gentile workforce of disciples that he's using this time. Actually, it was Gentile back then too. But it's connected to what time frame? The South. So what else does it go on to say? Oh, you see, then rising up in the judgment of this with this generation. And then we've got all of this that we've shared on a number of times as well. It's like 7 or 8 times the word light is used, or lighted, and there's like 5 different definitions. You only find this in Luke's discourse, in Luke's gospel, following the story of Jonah compared to Mark and Matthew. There's a reason for these differences every single time. So what is he going to do as Gad? Prophet, warning of judgment. This is what we've been teaching about for years. And now we can go to the sun, moon, and stars and see them in order that the Lord is representing them as this portion under Reuben. And we've now got them covered in what he is portraying in them through all 3 of the tribes when he comes. That's all new stuff. Right? Where else do we see the Lord warn? Right here. Right? In Luke chapter 19. Luke chapter 19 is also a big deal. You guys will remember this. This is all about the triumphal entry. Well, the triumphal entry is a picture of the pre, mid, and post, but I should say his first coming, second, and third coming, right? Those 3 times. Reuben, Ephraim, and Judah. This is a picture of his coming for 40 days. We've got a teaching in the pre, mid, post video. It's connected to exactly this. And so here he is coming as the Son of Man for 40 days. That is the prophetic picture in it. And then what does he do? Well, you find this wording only in Luke's gospel. There's a reason. Every time you see that, there's a reason. And what does he say? The exact same typology of what we were showing in Jonah, when he said he would be as Jonah was for 40 days. Which is connected to what? What he's going to represent as Gad. And when he came near, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying, if thou had known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong to thy peace, but now are hid from thine eyes. For the days shall come upon thee, that thine enemy shall cast a trench about thee, and compass thee round about, and keep thee in on every side. He's warning about them about to be surrounded all around, and then an attack coming upon them that won't leave one person left. And it says, and shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation. Because you knew not the time of your visitation? Let's go have a look at that one. Let's go see if we can show this connection. Okay? Here it is right here. We see that it's connected to his triumphal entry, which is again that picture of him coming for 40 days in Luke's. And because they knew what? They didn't know the time of their inspection, their visitation, which is connected to the word 1980, which is what? That's right. Luke chapter 1, at the visitation, connected to the 8th day of the circumcision, that remnant group, and the Jews now being there and the Son of Man warning as he said he would for 40 days. This is it right here. This is the exact same thing as we were saying with Jonah. But if you don't believe me, all we have to do is go to Luke 21 in his discourse. Because remember, the end of Luke is what happens first. The pre-trib is going to happen first. That's why to escape all these things which shall come to pass. And then what do we read? You don't see the abomination of desolation in Luke or in Matthew. You don't see it in Luke's. You only see it in Mark and Matthew's. And we can explain which one those are. We've got teachings on those as well. But you don't see it in Luke. But what does he say? You'll notice the same words. And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. And let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written shall be fulfilled, or may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child. Remember? So they're going to be compassed about with armies. Woe to them that are with children, because we know what's coming. And to them that give suck in those days, because these are the days of vengeance. They'll be led away captive, tread down until the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled. That's the end of seals. You see? This is the same prophecy for the time of the end while he's here warning for 40 days. This here is him being as Jonah was, which is the representation of what? Him playing the part of Gad. Playing the prophet as Jonah was. When he's Simeon, he's playing the part of the high priest, right? As the priestly, the one that could heal them and do these things, which when the Lord is here for 40 days, he'll be doing many miracle signs and wonders. And when he starts, he will be as Reuben, the one who is the man with the pitcher of water, that the remnant chosen, the disciples, will go to gather to him to have that banquet with. All represented by his 40 days. So if he's representing all of those during his 40 days, and all three of those during his 40 days, and all three of these are the representation of them in order, then what are the chances he's going to be here dealing with those three portions, at least in portion in Aquarius, in Pisces, and a portion in Aries? Makes sense, doesn't it? Certainly does to me. So if we go look at the chart again, and he's going to fulfill all of these, and there's the remnant workers connected to this group right here as the Gentile labor that he's going to use, his servants during this time, and he's going to gather them and then go out and preach and do those things and then warn about the compassing about as Gad. It makes sense to me, as I'm sure it does you, that if they represent all of these and there's a year's end in it, which is connected to his 40 days of his coming, and at the very latest he must begin in Aquarius, well then, where are we supposed to put it? You see what ends up happening? He fulfills all of them, right? He ends up fulfilling all of them. Watch this. Even if it's right here, that this is his 8th day, and he comes on the last day of Aquarius, then you've got the last day of Aquarius, you've got all of Pisces, and it would take us to right here in Aries, which is the month of Iyar. Look, we're in the 7th day of Iyar, which means there's more days in here where this all could take place, as long as some of it is also in Iyar. And what does that cover? At the very least, would cover a little in Aquarius, it would cover Pisces, and it would cover, in part, Aries. And then what would happen? Well, where are we? We'd be in spring, right? Even in May, We're in spring, so if his 40 days end here, there's what, 3 more days? Right in here, in the furthest out, for the end of the 50 days, his 40 days would come to an end here if it was the 29th of March, when he returns on the 8th day. There's 3 more days, 1, 2, 3 more. You'd have the anointing of the Holy Ghost take place. And then what would happen? The attack on Jerusalem. What he was warning them about. Remember, once he's gone and the 40 days are over, they're going to see the compassing about. Just like in Genesis chapter 8, right there. Just like in Genesis chapter 8, when we showed here, when the end of 40 days, what goes out first? The raven. The raven. That typology, that Antichrist spirit. And then the dove goes out on the 50th day. The dove will anoint that remnant group of disciples, and the dove will leave, and then the 14 years is kicking off. Now again, did the 14 years kick off at the start of 40 days? We've got 2 views on it, right? But in that same range. Now what happens? Where am I? All of them are covered in it. Right? All 3 of those tribes are covered in part by the Son of Man when he's here for 40 days. And I was fascinated to see that all 3 of those constellations were obviously back to back, but that from this, as a year's end, or even from further up, and him coming on the 8th day, all 3 of the constellations get covered or are touched on. And he represents all 3 when he comes as the Son of Man for 40 days. But again, so where does it end? Somewhere in here, where his 40 days would end, give or take? So that he's touched, well, actually, Ayar is all the way over here, right? So, but somewhere in here would be the end of his 40 days, based on, again, where it starts over here for his 40 days when he comes on the 8th day. Now, why am I also really pointing to this time here? Well, we're in spring, right? We're still in spring. Do you guys know what happens in spring? Kings go to war, right? Kings go to war. It was common for kings and armies to go to war during the spring. And what does it talk about? 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 1. Let's go to it over here in 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 1. It says, and it came to pass, listen to this, after the year was expired. Remember what we were talking about the circuit of the sun? Okay? After the year was expired. What did we say one of the representations of the circuit of the sun with the Son of Man coming? One was a revolution of time for the year. A revolution of time for the year. That was one of the tekufas, right? One was for the circuit of the sun, one was for the circuit of the year. What does it say? And it came to pass, which is in springtime, after the year had expired. It doesn't mean it's on day 1 in spring. It just means at the time of spring. And there's your revolution of the year. Okay? And what do we see? So there's our revolution of the year, which is confirming to us that one of these revolutions that we could be looking for connected to Psalms 19 is the one connected to a year, which would be the end of Adar before Nisan starts. And watch this. After the year was expired. Teshubah, right? And there's 2 definitions of it. And what is it? A recurrence of time or place, a reply as returned, answer, be expired, return. So what is this talking about? Again, It's just what we were talking about a moment ago. It's talking about being after the year is expired, sometime in the spring, which goes all the way to here, is the time when kings go to war. Well, that's pretty timely too. Now we've got biblical connections telling us that kings go to battle in the spring. And the only way we get to this understanding is by understanding from Numbers 24, John chapter 4, leading us to Aquarius, revealing to us the three tribes connected to it, to the timing of Christ, having to be Adar, Nisan, and Iyar, and when his 40 days are over and his warning comes to an end, it's Iyar, which is in the midst of spring when kings go to war. Hello. These are connections for us, guys. This is all connected. So as I start to wind this down, it's going to be an earlier one for you guys today. So again, right? Like we were saying, where does the 14 years really begin? Is it going to begin at the 40 days, or is it going to begin after? It certainly looks, according to this and according to the seals, that there's your 7-day wedding, and here's him coming as that light in the darkness, right? And I want to show you guys something now that we touched on part of this in the last teaching, but now we're going to take it a step further. Some of you guys will know this. There's 2 books in the prophets that we've revealed in order, okay? Now, when I say in order, we've got Hosea in chapters to years, right? We've got Zechariah chapters to years. We have Jonah. Actually, we have Jonah in order too, actually, but in reverse, right? It's so wild. And what are the other 2 that we have? We've revealed stuff from Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, a little bit from Lamentations, right? Not much in Obadiah, Jonah, Micah. Well, you'll remember there was an older one that we did about the book of Joel. And the book of Joel, we also know in order. Well, what were we talking about here tonight? What have we been talking about? The first coming of the Son of Man, the second coming, and the third coming. Numbers 24. Okay? Well, what do we know about Joel? It's the same story in chapter 1, compare to 2, compare to 3. And listen to what we read in Joel chapter 1. Okay? For those of you who don't know this teaching, I'll show it to you here. All right. So you guys can go and look for it. It's called Joel in the Is to Come. It's over 3 years old. It's about 3.5 years from October 7th, 2021. Okay? So it's been a while. And this is Joel in order. And in Joel chapter 1, remember what we talked about in the last video? About what Purim is connected to? That at Purim they get blind drunk? Well, what do we see? Joel chapter 1, with Joel in order, is talking about the drunkards. We were talking about how important this was in relation to the end of days, how we see it in John chapter 8, in Luke chapter 21:34. We see it everywhere in not being caught off guard, not being caught in drunkenness and the cares of this world. We were showing the connection in the last teaching to show how it was connected to the time of Purim. And lo and behold, we go to Joel chapter 1, and it says, "Awake, you drunkards, and weep and howl, all you drinkers of wine, because of the new wine, for it is cut off from your mouth. For a nation is come up upon my land, strong and without number, whose teeth are the teeth of a lion, and he hath the cheek teeth of a great lion. He hath laid my vine waste, bark the tree, my fig tree." Okay, this is that attack that's coming then on Jerusalem. What's the warning again? Drunkards. Drunkards again. Why was the drunkards a big deal? Why did it matter to us? You'll remember we shared this video, and when I shared it last time, there was no volume for it, right? But it was all about getting drunk at Purim. And the reason for the getting drunk, they use this as an excuse, and it's about getting almost like blind drunk. They're so drunk. And we see this warning everywhere. Around the pre-trib, coming of the Son of Man time, about not being caught off guard in the things of this world and in drunkenness. And we showed what this connection was to it. And it reminded me, as I was putting this together with the next piece I'm going to show you, is that just as we had Joel in order and have known it for 3.5 years now, it's connected to the drunkenness. Now, why do I show this before the next one? Well, because we know it in relation to the in order of Joel. We've taught on it for 3.5 years. But do you know of another one we've taught on? There's another book called Zephaniah that we've opened and revealed. And in Zephaniah, it has 3 chapters. And what have we shown on that one? We've shown Zephaniah. Here's the video for anybody that wants to go watch it. All right, hello. This was a big one. And this one was May 30th of 2024. Okay, 9-10 months ago. A big one. And it was all about Zephaniah being now revealed in order like Joel was in chapters 1, 2, and 3. Look at what we read in Zephaniah chapter 1. It's in black and white for us, or purple and black here. The coming judgment on Judah. What's chapter 2? Judgment on Judah's enemies. That's the end of seals at the coming of the Lord with Mount Zion. Right? This is when the beast is killed and the 10 kings that we showed, which is connected to what? You got it. Right here, the exact same story when he comes as Messiah ben Ephraim the ox. And then what happens when we come to chapter 3? The title tells it for us again. Judgment on Jerusalem and the nations. What? Why would there be judgment on Jerusalem and the nations? Well, because at mid-trumpets, a bunch of them flipped, if you will. Remember that? At mid-trumpets, at the first woe, a bunch of them flipped. Messiah gets cut off. The beast is brought back because Satan had been cast down. The pit is opened. And how can we prove this? We were able to prove it in many places, but in Zechariah chapter 14. Right? Zechariah 14, the day of the Lord, which is at his return, feet down on the Mount of Olives. And what does he say? Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, thy spoils shall be divided in the midst of thee. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. And the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, and half of the city shall go into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Hello. Destruction coming to Jerusalem, and then to all of the enemies that came to attack. This is the story of Zephaniah in order. It's the 3 comings of the Lord, just as Joel is, just as we read from Numbers 24, just as the 3 discourses are at the 3 comings of the Lord in the discourses. Those 3 comings in the discourses of Luke, Mark, Matthew are Reuben, the man with the pitcher of water, Ephraim, the ox, and Judah, the lion of the tribe of Judah. Those are the 3 comings of the Lord in each of the 3 discourses. Just in case people hadn't figured that out yet. So now why am I bringing this up in relation to Purim? Well, in Zephaniah, and this was in this conversation in the forum, and for anybody, when you hear me speak about the forum, if you're new to Ministry Revealed, you can go to ministryrevealed.com, go to the menu, click the menu box, and click forum. It'll take you 5-10 seconds to sign up, and it's free. I don't know, 1,400 people from all over the world praying, supporting, and strengthening, and Bible studies and news and events going on all around the world, tracking, watching, and praying with diligent brothers and sisters all over the world. You can sign up there for free. And what had happened was it was one of our brothers in there that reminded me of this teaching that we did in Zephaniah. And what was the big deal in Zephaniah? Well, back then, before the revelations of these things that revealed the calendars in the fall, it was something that everybody goes to in October. Everybody likes to go to this in October. Okay? Let's have a read. And what are we talking about? We're talking about the coming judgment on Judah, which is, let's just go to Zechariah chapter 1, because it starts with the judgment on Judah, which is Jerusalem. Remember what it said? Verse 12. Then the angel of the Lord answered and said, O Lord of hosts, how long wilt thou not have mercy on Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, against which you have had indignation these 70 years? Okay? And then what happens? The Lord is jealous with great jealousy. He was sore displeased at the heathen that were at ease, and then he what? Forwarded the affliction. Okay? So when we track this, and we go back now to Zephaniah, knowing this coming judgment is coming upon Jerusalem, what do we see? What do we see that people like to go to? Well, let's start in verse 7, understanding that this is connected to the coming of the Son of Man. Hold thy peace at the presence of the Lord God, for the day of the Lord is at hand, for the Lord hath prepared a sacrifice. He hath bid his guests. Okay? So he's what? He's already bid, he's already cleansed, purified his guests, right? Those that were invited, he's already done that. Remember, it's a picture of the Son of Man coming for 40 days. And what does it say now? And it shall come to pass in the day of the Lord's sacrifice that I will punish the princes and the children's king, and the king's children, and all such as are clothed with strange apparel. In the same day also will I punish all those that leap on the threshold, which fill their master's house with violence and deceit. How many times? Now, over the years, we've considered this as well. But most of the channels, every single year, when Halloween is coming, they go to this to point to Halloween. Does this have anything to do with the Gentiles, brothers and sisters? Does this have anything to do with the Gentiles? With the coming judgment on Judah? No. It has absolutely zero zilch to do with the Gentiles. This is something that the Jews are doing. This is something that he's also punishing them for this strange apparel, for this drunkenness. And like I said, we've shared already on the drunkenness that takes place at Purim. That is their time of the year to get blind drunk. But do you know what it also is? It's the time of year where the Jews dress in strange apparel. Now, after all of these years in these studies, I had no idea until just this past week that this happened at Purim. You guessed it, brothers and sisters. This happens at Purim. Watch this. Let's play this clip right here. Okay, this is the one that we had showed earlier. I'll play this one for you right here. And then I'll just show you a couple write-ups about it. Okay? Why do we wear costumes on Purim?
There are a few explanations of why the custom of wearing costumes on Purim developed. One is that Esther had to conceal herself, conceal her Judaism when she went in front of King Ahasuerus. to remind us of that moment, we put on costumes hiding ourselves. There's an interesting relation here to the Hebrew word for costume. The Hebrew word is tachposet. And within that word is the root, which means to look for. And so when one wears a costume, we're hiding ourselves and others have to look deeply for us. But another way to think about it is that when we wear a costume, we are looking for other aspects of ourselves that might not be able to be seen without the protection of a costume.
Okay, so you saw those different costumes. Here's some costumes right here. Right, you go down, here's more costumes. Here they are in different costumes, all dressed in strange apparel on the day of their drunkenness, brothers and sisters. Check this out. It's right here. It says, while there is no direct Jewish equivalent of Halloween, the holiday of Purim, with its costumes, celebrations, and festive traditions, is often humorously referred to as Jewish Halloween. The Purim Halloween for the Jews. Brothers and sisters, Zephaniah chapter 1 is a chapter to coming of the Lord of 1, 2, 3, like Numbers 24 in the three blessings of the Lord. Joel is the same in 1, 2, and 3. One is about drunkenness, and the other one is about being dressed in strange apparel. Both of them are condemnations to the Jews, and how do we know they're condemnations to the Jews? Because when the Son of Man is coming, he's warning about them not being ready at the time of their visitation and them being compassed about and destroyed. And in two of the books that we had revealed that have 3 chapters each and have shown for over 9 months and over 3 years relate to Luke in the coming of the Son of Man, Matthew in the coming of the Son of Man, and Mark in the coming of the Son of Man, and Matthew at the coming of the Son of Man. We have here in 2 of the open books with 3 chapters that we have shared the 3 comings of the Lord and the events of the times in them. And one is drunkenness, and the other is them being dressed in strange apparel. It's speaking to the Jews, not the Gentiles, brothers and sisters. And what does it talk about? Those that leap on the threshold. Those that leap on the threshold, do you know what they do? They go from neighbor to neighbor, right? Oh, I just deleted the last one. Whoops. But they end up going from neighbor to neighbor with these costumes, bringing food and so forth. You can go read about it. They go to their neighbor's place. They bring them drinks and they bring them food, dressed up in their costumes, attending these parties. And what are they doing? The same thing that we used to look at for the Gentile Halloween, which was connected all the time to what? Them crossing the threshold, right? Them leaping on the threshold, them leaping on the threshold of the doors of people, like their neighbors. Now we find out after all of this time, having known this connection was to the Jews, because the warning and the coming of the Lord is starting with Jerusalem. And the coming of what the Son of Man is representing in those 3 tribes when he comes for 40 days. They're in strange apparel, getting blind drunk, brothers and sisters. And they're going to do so, I don't know, is it like right here or right here? I don't think they'll do it on the Sabbath, so I believe it's right here. Is this possible? Is this the possible time? Could this be our escape and the events that take place? You see, we can still be hopeful in this, guys. We're still in this neighborhood. We're in this time frame. All of this is still connected to these three right here. Is it really late in the year? Is the season coming down to the wire? Yeah, it certainly is. It certainly is. Right? And if this time comes to pass, we'll be diligent. We ain't going anywhere. We'll continue to seek and search. We'll continue in this format for now. Maybe the format will change depending on how the Lord leads me. And what I mean by that doesn't mean I won't be posting videos. It just means maybe, and I don't mean right away, but in the coming months, if the Lord leads me in a direction to start going out more, then I would record those goings out and the events that would take place and the teachings that take place. I don't know where the Lord, which direction he wants me to go, and we'll see how it all plays out in here. But I want you guys to see how exciting this still is. It truly, truly is exciting. These are the three in order. These are the three in order. And he is coming at the connection of each of the three corners. It's awesome, guys. We've been so blessed. I don't even, sometimes we try to contain the excitement. We try to, what do we do with it, right? How much, Lord, how do we reach more people? We just want to reach more. I mean, how much more do we have to prepare? It's been 7.5 years of doing it, and it's not just another prophecy channel and doing what they can, and we appreciate that. It's awesome. And people have been doing this for 2,000 years or longer. We know the ancient prophets were looking at these things. But we've been given these open books. We've been given the open books. Think about how we've gone into every single book. And the vast majority, virtually every chapter, but not all, and shown connections to the prophetic end of days within each and every single one of the 66 books. Some of them fully. Like we're talking here from Joel and Zephaniah, from Zechariah to Hosea, and many, many more. You just think, Lord, how many more? How much more do we have to spend opening it, Lord? How much more has to take place? How much more? Knowing that when the Lord comes, he is going to finish the story of understanding for us. He's going to open the understanding for the remnant workers. How much more, Lord? I love it. I love it, and we will continue to do it regardless of which way it happens. We will continue to be here. We will continue to be in the forum. We'll continue all of the activity of these things and the supporting of the ministry and our brothers and sisters and everybody being reached in Uganda and around the world. It's awesome. I wouldn't change it for all the money in the world. But I sometimes wonder, how much longer, Lord? So with that, let me finish it with one last piece. Watch this. In Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 9, we saw the threshold, but now watch this. In verse 10, and it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, that there shall be a noise of a cry from the fish gate, and a howling from the second, and a great crashing from the hills. What? From the fish gate? What's the fish gate? You guys know what the fish gate is, right? It's Pisces. So from in the fish gate, a cry, and what does it say? And from the second, a crashing. Isn't that what we just covered? A cry, a warning during the 40 days. In Pisces. In Aquarius, he meets with the remnant workers, has the banquet meal. In Pisces, the warning comes, goes into Aries during the 40 days, and then a crashing comes. A crashing, the destruction coming on Jerusalem. Starting from a cry in Pisces in the fish gate. And from the second Aries, a crashing. I told you. The continuous, right? This has been continuous for 7.5 years, hasn't it? It's continued and continued. One little piece. Our brother gives us the piece by mentioning that Simeon was there, and I didn't even realize the connection. Wait a second, yes, Simeon is there. And then we go and dig and look into all these things, and it's the direct connection to this same time frame. Go a little bit further and realize, hey, there's more to it because there's Gad, and we look to see what Gad represents, and Gad is the prophet warning of the invading and destruction. And then we go to the chapters that are revealed at the comings of the Lord, and we see the events of what they're doing connected to these timings. It's awesome, awesome, awesome. We have been blessed. I am so grateful. I am grateful for the Lord, for his Son, for everything that the Spirit has led me and my family and the family of this ministry in. I wish there was millions of people understanding it around the world, but I understand we are a people being prepared. And though we will continue to share it, continue to try to reach more, until that time comes, the Lord will bring in who is meant to be brought in, and we will just do our job in continuing to share, continuing to strengthen, continuing to draw each and every one of us closer as the revelation gets more clear and more detailed and just fills us with greater and greater joy, just as it's said in 1 Peter chapter 1, with a joy unspeakable. Until what? Until we no longer have faith, because we will be in the presence of our faith, ready to serve him. Brothers and sisters, I pray this has blessed you. I pray it gives you a little more strength. I pray that you continue to pray for each other and lift up Steve in Uganda, our brother who's going through some health issues, as we've said. They've given him some medicine now, but he's got to stay in another part of the country where he had to travel to for it. He's got to be there till the end of the week. So please continue to pray for him, for his family, for the whole team in Uganda. Man, they're reaching people in prisons. They're reaching people on the street sides, everywhere, with the revelation of Jesus Christ in salvation and in the preparation in understanding him and his word for prophecy to ready a people. So brothers and sisters, I pray we continue doing those things for each other and for all those who are out there. I love you. God bless you. God bless your families. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.